Nothing, absolutely nothing, is more important to a successful negotiation than for you to make as clear as possible from the very beginning that no is a perfectly acceptable response at this negotiating table. You must make clear that you do not take no as a personal rejection, but as an honest decision that can be discussed and perhaps reversed. You must make clear that a blunt no is preferable to maybe, which tells you nothing at all, and also preferable to yes, a total non-starter. This time we are going to read my highlights of an excellent book on negotiation, which is called Start with No: The Negotiating Tools That the Pros Don't Want You to Know, by Jim Camp. Win-win will kill your deal. I selected Start with No expressly to emphasize my profound disagreement with win-win, which implicitly urges you to get to yes as quickly as possible, by almost any means necessary. Such negotiating is the worst possible way to get the best possible deal. In fact, it will get you killed. But so many deals have been negotiated on the basis of win-win, some people say. So many headlines, articles, books. It must work. My answer is simple. The fact that a given deal was negotiated and signed tells me nothing at all. Who says this was a good deal, much less the best one? Quote, "Now, Denise, Tom, you have to consider our legitimate interests here. We have to do a little good faith here, a little win-win." What is Denise and Tom's first thought? It's probably that they have to give up something if they need to sign this deal. And of course, they do need to sign this deal. It's such a big one for their company. They have allowed themselves to be subtly manipulated into feeling responsible for the results reported to his boss by their adversary. They're nice people, so they compromise in order to help their adversary become a winner too, though they have no idea what makes him a winner. When naive, eager to earn, Denise and Tom are negotiating with a cunning tiger who has also read the win-win books, they are in terrible jeopardy. Why in the world compromise before you're certain you have to? Sometimes you do, and that's fine, but often you don't, and that's better. The key point is that with a win-win mindset, you'll never know which it is. Think carefully about this for a moment. Win-win and compromise are a defeatist mindset from the first handshake. Negotiating under the banner of win-win, you'll have no way of knowing if you've made good and necessary decisions leading up to the compromise. Sure, win-win sounds good. That's exactly why it's so dangerous and why you have to be so careful. When negotiating over the fence with your neighbor about what time you should fire up the coals for the big barbecue, you might well get by with win-win, but not against the tough, seasoned negotiators in the outside world. This book is a refutation of all such emotion-based negotiating. As an alternative, I present for your consideration decision-based negotiating. In the end, I believe you'll agree with me that the difference between the two is clear and that the choice between the two is easy. I focused on what I could control, the means, not what I could not control, the end. The focus of this book is teaching you how to do the same during negotiation, because too many negotiators do just the opposite. They focus on what they cannot control, the end, while losing sight of what they can control, the means. You cannot control the other party's actions and decisions, not directly, but you can control your assessment of your adversary's situation, and you can, with a great deal of work and discipline, control your own actions and decisions, and you can keep your emotions under check. My system teaches you how to control what you can control in a negotiation. When you do so, you can and will succeed, understanding that success sometimes means walking away with a polite goodbye. My principle and title, Start with No, is based on the understanding that no is a decision. An early yes is probably a trick, and maybe it's just that, maybe, and gets you nowhere. But no is a decision that gives everyone something to talk about, that helps you maintain control. In my system, you forget about winning and concentrate on the fundamentals of sound decision-making. Win-win is often win-lose because it invites unnecessary compromise, because it is emotion-based, not decision-based, and because it plays to the heart, not to the head. You will close this book feeling, I can do this. What's more, I already have a pretty good idea how to do this. Your greatest weakness in negotiation, the dangers of neediness. Why are the tiger's eyes set in the front of the head, facing forward? Because the animal is a predator, always on the lookout for prey. Why are our own eyes also set in the front of the head, facing forward? Because we are predators as well. You do not need this deal, because to be needy is to lose control and make bad decisions. Neediness can have, will have, a dramatic, always negative effect on your behavior. You must overcome any neediness at the negotiating table. Tough negotiators are expert at recognizing this neediness in their adversaries and expert in creating it as well. The only things we truly need are the basics of physical survival: air, water, food, clothing, shelter. And everyone reading this book already has these. We also need the basics of intellectual and emotional well-being: love, family, friendship, satisfying work, hobbies, faith. Each reader has his or her own list here, but it's a short list, and it does not or should not include the $500 jacket or the $100,000 car, because there are other jackets and cars. It should not include this particular job or sale or deal, because there are other jobs and sales and deals. Hi, I'm Frank Jones. Hello, Mr. Jones. Such subtle subservience puts you at an immediate disadvantage. You have conceded that Frank Jones is Top Gun in this room, and he knows it. You're ripe for the picking, so call him Frank instead. Well, Mary, I have no idea whether what we do has any relevance for your business. I just don't know, maybe it doesn't. If not, just tell me and I'll be on my way. But if whoever handles your market research, and off you go, or not, it doesn't matter. Your neediness is under control. When emotions run hot and heavy in negotiations, the high-pitched voice is a sure sign of need. The rushed delivery is another sure sign. While the needy negotiators raise their voices, negotiators under control lower their voices. So lower your voice in times of inner turmoil. Slow down. Fear of rejection is a sign of neediness, specifically the need to be liked. It is imperative for the negotiator to understand just what rejection is and who can reject you and who cannot. Here's the key point. Your adversaries in a negotiation cannot reject you. There's nothing you need from them, so how can they reject you? It's impossible. The parent can reject the child because the child certainly needs the parent. A few years ago, I took on a corporate client who had just lost a large deal with a multinational after my new client had compromised in every way imaginable. They had the best technology to start with, and on top of that, they offered the best price, the best terms, the best delivery dates, the best service, the best everything. If they could compromise on any element of the negotiation, they did. They even tossed in a free piece of very expensive equipment, no strings attached. But the multinational walked away from this steal of a deal. Why? We finally found out that their CEO was wary precisely because the company that was now my client had compromised too much. Something must be wrong, he thought, for a company to show so much need. That cannot be a competent, trustworthy company. They'll never be able to deliver. And that CEO was right. My new client would never have been able to make good on the commitments negotiated in that deal. The trained negotiator has no needs because it just doesn't matter. There are other deals. Turn the page on this one. Let it go. I add the point that urgent closing betrays neediness on your own part. You need to close. No, you don't. When someone has tried to close on you too quickly, and someone has in one context or another, unless you're still a babe in arms, you instinctively react in the negative. Nothing but nothing will blow a negotiation faster than such a rush to judgment. Why? You had a vision of neediness, which makes anyone feel uncomfortable emotionally, and which also serves as a warning to look closer at this deal. As a negotiator aspiring to excellence, you must at all costs avoid showing need. In order to avoid showing need, you must never feel it. You do not need this deal. But what happens if you simply substitute the word and the emotion want for need? The dynamics change. As good negotiators, the word want means something we work for, strive for, plan for, but it is never confused with need. Sure, I want this global alliance with Humongous Incorporated, but I don't need it. I want the car, but I don't need it. I want the house, but I don't need it. It will be their loss, not mine, if any of these deals falls through. Either way, I'll sleep tonight and I'll eat tomorrow. The Columbo effect, the secret of being not okay. Whatever our strength, that is what we build on. That is what we show in the world. This is what we need to show the world. Likewise, we compare ourselves to others in order to see how we stack up. Are we a little ahead or a little behind? When we are with people we think we are ahead of or at least equal to, we feel comfortable. Conversation comes easily and questions seem to have no risk. We feel okay. But in the presence of people to whom we feel inferior, whether culturally, socially, or intellectually, we feel unokay and can become defensive or aggressive or resentful or a lot of other emotions. The wise negotiator knows that only one person in a negotiation can feel okay, and that person is the adversary. By letting your adversary be a little more okay, you start to bring down barriers. By allowing him to feel in control, you, like Columbo, are actually in control. I am not suggesting that you appear unprofessional. I am asking you not to be afraid of candor and honesty, not to be afraid of not being totally okay, of being less than perfect. Do you enjoy being around the perfect person? I don't. People want to deal with a regular person. In a negotiation, being less okay is just showing a foible now and then. Struggle a little. Borrow a pen or paper to take notes. Search for the right words to ask questions. Letting people help you is an excellent way to help them feel more okay. It also says to your adversary, what you see is what you get. The tougher the negotiation, the more critical it is to understand that if someone in this room has to be unokay, it will be you and not your adversary. When your adversary feels unokay, the barriers go up much faster than you can break them down. But unokayness on your part breaks down barriers, like magic, often. The next time you find yourself in a situation in which your adversary is maybe just a little standoffish or doubtful, try being a little less okay. Start with no. how decisions move negotiations forward. The real decisions are being made somewhere else. Our so-called rational mind kicks in only after we've made the decision, in order to justify it after the fact. Negotiations and even decision-making do begin with emotions. Emotions are rampant. They are at the root of our initial decisions. They are unreliable. They are even destructive. But these emotions do not have to be the final word. My system sees emotions for what they are and works with them, not against them. My system teaches us how to progress from emotions, which never produce deals that stick, to decisions that do produce deals that stick. Because no is a real decision that induces the party across the table into actually thinking about why they've just said no. The responsibility of making a clear decision helps the adversary to focus on the real issues of the negotiation. The adversary has to take responsibility for no, so now everyone has something real to talk about. In fact, as we will soon see, the mere invitation for the other side to say no changes the dynamic of a negotiation in a very beneficial way. I could even suggest that maybe is more of an emotion than anything else. It definitely isn't a decision. It definitely does not engage the negotiator's rational mind. It definitely doesn't give either side anything to work with. I cannot emphasize this point too strongly. Maybe is the kiss of death for a successful negotiation. If you can't quickly get past maybe, and it comes in infinite varieties, of course, start walking, because you're wasting your time. Sometimes the adversary is so conditioned by the getting to yes ethos that she starts out with a yes. But a yes in the beginning is no better than a maybe. It is not a decision, not really, because your adversary can't really mean yes. If she did, everyone wouldn't be here negotiating in the first place. More important, when our adversaries say yes, we get excited, our adrenaline starts pumping, we start computing the commission and deciding between the Mercedes and the Beamer. And before we know it, we're, what? Needy. Maybe is worthless and yes is dangerous, so we're left with no, a real decision. As I said, no gets the adversary across the table into a rational mode. Just thinking about saying no gets the adversary into the rational mode. Elucidation is required, and now you have real issues to discuss. That's the key idea here. No gets you past emotional issues and trivial issues to essential issues. We want decision-based negotiation, not the emotion-based waste of time known as win-win. Well, Mary, I have no idea whether what we do has any relevance for your business. I just don't know. Maybe it doesn't. If not, just tell me and I'll be on my way. But if whoever handles your market research, see how that statement invites the adversary to say no? Establishing this ground rule is just so critical in all negotiations. I'm here to tell you that a good script that begins with a calm invitation to say no will generate about 3 good appointments for every 10 calls, which is an unbelievable percentage, as I'm sure you'll agree. A negotiation is simply an agreement between 2 or more parties, with all parties having the right to veto. That's what it is. Nothing more, nothing less, nothing fancy, nothing meaningless, nothing win-win. In the world of business specifically, we are so immersed in the emotion-based atmosphere of win-win that saying no just sounds too harsh. It goes completely against the win-win grain of subservience and malleability and neediness. We all want to be liked. We don't want to hurt someone's feelings. We don't want to come across as too blunt or surly or arrogant or demanding. We don't want to shut the door and deal prematurely. We don't want to start a win-win negotiation on a negative note. Therefore, we pull our punches and say maybe or even yes and believe that this solves everyone's problem. We haven't had to say the nasty word and our adversary hasn't had to hear it. Win-win. No. Lose-lose because we're stuck in our emotions and then get victimized by our emotions. My client would ask for first-class airfare, a limousine at the airport, and $500 an hour, with a minimum of 2 days. A total of $8,000 for 16 hours to be transferred by wire immediately. There was nothing out of line about this proposal, nothing at all. For an expert of his prominence, he was right in line. Nevertheless, he was very uncomfortable when he returned the call, made his presentation, then invited them to say no if this was too much money. He would understand, he assured the other party, no hard feelings, and he was sure they could find another good expert witness somewhere on the West Coast. Maybe you could even recommend one, given a little time. So he said, just let me know. The caller on the other end said he'd have to check back on this. My client hung up, totally exhausted from his traumatic experience. 45 minutes later, the other party called back, agreed to the deal, and asked for the account number for the wire transfer. Another client actually said to me recently, "How will people like my company if we don't cut our price?" In just so many words, he didn't ask, "How will my company be profitable?" or "How will we be seen as effective, dynamic company with which to do business?" He asked, "How will they like me?" Never save the adversary or save the relationship. Without question, one of the most dangerous mistakes you can make in a negotiation is trying to save the adversary, as I put it. There can be no saving of the adversary emotionally, intellectually, financially, or on any level. No, none, never. It's a terrible practice that does neither side any good. Neither side? That's correct, because if you do save the adversary, you are now partially responsible for their decision. If some problem comes up later, who gets the guilt trip laid on them? Who sets himself up for another compromise? This reaction is quite common, of course. In fact, in the early stage of a negotiation, I'd say it's probably the most common reaction. People take no as personal rejection. They get ugly, they go negative in a big way. And this is why saving the relationship is classic win-win behavior. The classic win-win dilemma is this one. How much money do I have to leave on the table in order to maintain this relationship? Big-time corporate negotiators, along with many others, play this game to the hilt. They play up the importance of partnerships, loyalty, the long-term, emotion-based stuff. How could you endanger such benefits by holding the line? But their only real concern is the price they're paying. Friendships with the good folks on the other side can be fine, or they can be dangerous. It's hard enough for many negotiators to say no to the adversaries they've just met. How much harder is it to say no to friends? Respect, not friendship, is what you want. For business people and negotiators in any field, much more important than friendliness are effectiveness and respect. Nothing more. Every reader can think of a case in which she or he has chosen to deal with an obnoxious but effective person rather than a friendly but ineffective one. What does friendship have to do with making good business and negotiating decisions? Not a thing. Why would you want to load down a business relationship with a lot of emotional baggage, including guilt, which can be the byproduct of friendship? It doesn't work. Inexperienced or wrong-headed negotiators believe that no locks them into a wrong decision and that maybe protects them from this wrong decision. How do you get rid of the fear of being wrong? I'll answer this question with another one. What really happens when we make a bad decision? We make another decision and then another and then another and then another. A negotiation is a series of decisions. When, not if, but when you make a bad decision, you simply follow it with a better one. Understanding this simple lesson will liberate you as a negotiator. Embrace no at every opportunity in a negotiation. Don't fear the word, invite it. You do not take it as a personal rejection because you are not needy. You understand that every no is reversible. Nothing, absolutely nothing, is more important to a successful negotiation than for you to make as clear as possible from the very beginning that no is a perfectly acceptable response at this negotiating table. You must make clear that you do not take no as a personal rejection, but as an honest decision that can be discussed and perhaps reversed. You must make clear that a blunt no is preferable to maybe, which tells you nothing at all, and also preferable to yes, a total non-starter. They can give you an honest no, you'll accept it gratefully, and they know you'll react in the same way in the future. Feeling safe saying no, they also feel safe hearing no. Barriers go down, trust goes up, everyone feels more comfortable. Everyone becomes more forthright. We're all adults here, the atmosphere of honesty is welcome. In the long run, no is really the safest answer. It does not tear down business relationships, it builds them. You want win-win? Saying and inviting and hearing no are the real win-win. Success comes from this foundation. Develop your mission and purpose. If your negotiation serves a valid mission and purpose, you don't have to worry about whether you get every last dollar or concession out of the deal, or whether you gave enough dollars and concessions. You don't worry about the long-term relationship. You are not responsible for the other party's decisions. You don't care whether this contract is win-win, win-lose, lose-win, or lose-lose. Such scorekeeping is suddenly seen for what it is: arbitrary, empty, meaningless. What great decision, what great achievement was accomplished without the valid mission and purpose? Certainly, there have been accidental discoveries in technology, but again, I ask you, what great political or scientific or social or philanthropic deed or what work of art was pulled off without the focus, control, and resolution provided by a clear mission and purpose? If you're not working on behalf of your own mission and purpose, you're working on behalf of someone else's. People who are unhappy and frustrated in their work either have invalid mission and purposes, quote, I want to make $1 million before I'm 21, or they don't have one and are serving someone else's, and some part of them understands this at some deep level. The mission and purpose is not self-evident. If you work for yourself and do not have one in place, you are working at a great disadvantage. I have nothing against money and power properly acquired and used, but they must be the result, not the essence, of a valid mission and purpose. Another problem with concentrating on money and power as a mission and purpose is that you're scorekeeping, and scorekeeping means you're thinking about results over which you have no real control. Winning is beyond our control, while preparation is 100% under our control. And what is the cornerstone of preparation? Mission and purpose. Setting the mission and purpose in the constituents or the customers or the adversary's world allows all of them to see clearly the features and benefits that you and your product or service have to offer them. Your mission and purpose is to focus on someone else. That someone else is your lifeblood, whether you're a politician, a doctor, a patient, a business person, or a negotiator. Don't ever forget this. As a negotiator, you don't go anywhere without your adversary, by definition. We greatly enhance our opportunity for a successful deal by putting the adversary first in our mission and purpose. You make your killing, or just a solid profit, only by entering heart and soul into your adversary's world, business, needs, requirements, hopes, fears, and plans. Your mission and purpose is to allow her or him to see and decide that you build and service the best machine for the task at a competitive price. It is not to sell 10,000 machines this fiscal year. By providing the best machine, you may sell the 10,000, but focusing on them is putting the profit before the performance, your world before your adversaries. It won't work. And what about Jim Camp, book author? My mission and purpose is to provide the opportunity for people to elevate their level of success, accomplishing this by means of clear, concise writing that presents in a systematic way the keys to decision-based negotiating. Often you want to create a vision in the other party that will move them to take action. Mission and purpose drives vision for all parties, and vision drives effective decision-making for all parties. It's as simple as that. In short, you may want your adversaries to see and decide. From what perspective will they see and decide? From the perspective of their own world, of course. Therefore, your mission and purpose must be set in their own world, the key criterion for a valid MNP, mission and purpose. You or your company may well have many mission and purposes because you have one for almost every major task you undertake, and for many seemingly minor tasks as well. Your mission and purpose can, and perhaps should, change. Stop trying to control the outcome. Focus on your behavior and actions instead. We arrive at the real answer to what we can control about ourselves: behavior and activity, or as I sometimes put it, an action or effort to an end. I'd even say that most companies, professionals, and individuals set performance goals that are really results over which they have no control and which they fail to meet time after time after time. Understand the difference between a goal and a result, between what we can and cannot control. My initial goals would be to focus at all times on my mission and purpose, to control my neediness and to never demonstrate neediness, to always allow my adversary to be okay, to have no fear of saying or hearing no. What you can control is behavior and activity. What you cannot control is the result of this behavior and activity. Even if some kind of quantitative goal is achieved, it is still an invalid, dangerous goal. Say you're a salesperson and you've got your number for the week and it's only Wednesday. You might be tempted to think, man, I'm great, I'll relax the rest of the week, it's my reward. See the problem? Worse, what if you don't have your number toward the end of the week? You tend to work harder, not smarter, all in the service of what's not valid anyway. You end up working on the wrong problem or with the wrong activities and habits and dig a deeper hole. And if you're into the win-win thing, you very likely end up making a classic win-win mistake: the unnecessary compromise in the course of chasing an invalid goal. That's a killer. I have seen that the failure to set manageable goals is as common a mistake as any other. People get confused because they don't have a step-by-step plan. They casually talk about goals and results or objectives, but they don't really know how to distinguish between them. For one thing, they don't have a mission and purpose to guide them. They thereby put themselves on an emotional roller coaster, and this is a fatal error, as we shall see time and again in these pages. Disappointment, excitement, despair, hope, they experience the whole range of emotions, and all because they're reacting to events over which they don't have control, and ignoring those over which they do have control. Setting unmanageable goals, those that are beyond your control, is one common mistake. Wasting time and energy on manageable but insufficient or unworthy goals is another. To make my point here, I draw a distinction between what I call pay-side and non-pay-side activities. How do you, as a student of negotiation, turn newly learned activity and behavior into habit? You too should keep a daily record and use it to identify strengths and weaknesses. Remember Vince Lombardi. Winning isn't everything, but the will to prepare to win is everything. What do you say? Fuels of the camp system. Questions. If you master the art of questioning, your work as a negotiator will benefit enormously. In any negotiation, where do we want to spend as much time as possible? In the adversary's world. Your mission and purpose is set in your adversary's world. Starting with mission and purpose and going from there, you want to inhabit the adversary's world because that is the world about which you need information. That is the perspective from which the adversary makes decisions. Our decisions are initially 100% emotional. After we've made our emotion-based decision, we need time to get the clear picture, the clearer vision from which to rationally judge that decision. Questions do serve the further purpose of helping us to control our own neediness and to be un-okay. And that is a valuable purpose, I hope we all agree. But the vital purpose of questions is to allow us to move around in the adversary's world and see what they see, and then lead them to a clear vision and decision as well. The good ones are led by an interrogative, not by a verb. Who, what, when, where, why, how, and which. Interrogative-led questions are a key means of discovery. They elicit details. They ensure thoroughness. They help the adversary, as well as us, see what hasn't been seen and understood before. The interrogative-led question helps you help the adversary to turn on their vision and to paint clear pictures, so that both sides have the same picture. It gives you the power to see what they see, and you need to. Otherwise, there will be no progress in this negotiation. Is there anything else you need? Versus, what else do you need? Do you like what you see? Versus, what are your thoughts? You may think that a lengthy compound question sounds impressive, but you're not in the business of sounding impressive, remember? Such a question serves only to kill vision and to confuse your adversary. Another key is to ask one question at a time. Simple question by simple question, answer by answer, you will help your adversary build his own picture of the issue. You must take each question slow and easy and listen to each answer, because that answer is the clue for framing the next question. There seems to be a human impulse to help people answer our questions. We start off with a good interrogative-led question, but then answer it for the adversary, or at least throw out possible answers. How do you say it? More fuels of the camp system. Your ability to nurture your adversary, to put him or her at ease, is the key to assuring her that you are listening and that you value what she has to say. Nurturing is also just another way to allow your adversary to feel okay. The truly comfortable, trained negotiator takes it easy. When in doubt, slow your cadence of speech, lower your voice. When the going gets tough in a negotiation, your biggest challenge will be your ability to nurture your adversary in spite of everything else going on. Without the nurturing tidbit, The reverse will do you little good, but if you have any doubt that the nurturing reverse works, try it the next time you're talking with someone at the proverbial water cooler. We human beings are seduced by it every time. Jim, what will this option do for me? That's a good question, Dick. Before we get into that, what's the biggest challenge you're facing in this area? Nurture, reverse. In any negotiation, the reverse assures that you're dealing with an important question for you, thereby allowing you to gather more insight and information. Your job is to get information from the adversary by asking questions, not to provide information by answering questions. As I've said in several contexts, we have a tendency to want to save our adversary, to be liked. This instinct can impel us into these 3 common negotiation errors, which I have derived from what every attorney tells his clients before a deposition or testimony. Never answer an unasked question. Don't interpret a statement as a question, and never reply to random statements. The 3+ technique goes hand in hand with never close. The whole point of 3+ is to give the adversary multiple opportunities to look at their decision, to verify it, to justify it, or to change it. Back and forth, emotional swings can be catastrophic to the negotiation, especially if they're big and dramatic. The task of the good negotiator is to keep the pendulum as close as possible to a calm, stationary mode. The big negative swings don't do anyone any good in the long run, and neither do the big positive swings. If you, the salesperson, allow the potential customer to swing too hard into the positive mode, what happens when the inevitable second thoughts and doubts set in? The pendulum that was high in the positive mood swings down with so much momentum it carries all the way through neutral and into the hard negative mode. Now, what do? This may be a position from which you never recover. Avoid both the strongly negative and the strongly positive by staying in the calm neutral range, which is where we find the deals that stick. This is totally contrarian negotiating. You mean we don't want the adversary to get all excited about this deal? No, we don't, because the excitement won't last. Those inevitable second thoughts will come along sooner or later. Find a good opportunity to say, "Wow, this is bad. I don't know if we can ever recover from this." Quite likely, your adversary will then help you recover. It's so much fun when this happens. Now, the positive strip line is just that, a way to bring the adversary back toward a more neutral position from a position that's too positive. Yes, too positive. The well-trained car salesman puts a slight damper on his customer's excitement over the black car by saying, "Black is a powerful color for a sports car, but it sure shows the dirt. It'll take work." This brings the positive adversary closer to neutral and at the same time urges him to validate his own enthusiasm for the color black, his vision of the color black. He replies, "Yeah, but if I buy this car, keeping it clean will be a pleasure." In all honesty, I could not name one instance in which a positive strip line ever backfired. It just never backfires. To believe that it might is to misunderstand human nature and your purpose as a negotiator. Believing that the positive strip is dangerous reveals that you're stuck in a rush to close mode. That's great, Joan. I appreciate your interest, but we still have a lot of challenges to work on. Quiet your mind. Create a blank slate. No expectations, no assumptions, no talking. In my system, blank slate is a verb. As negotiators, we actively blank slate in order to create a blank slate in our own minds, which then sits ready and waiting to receive any new information, new attitudes, new emotions, or new anything that our adversary wittingly or unwittingly beams our way. I've already pointed out some of the dangers of neediness. Another danger of neediness of any kind is that it interferes with blank slating. So does the fear of hearing no and the fear of failing. Obviously, the tendency of some of us to know it all interferes with blank slating, because if we know it all, why bother to listen? Once we do get the hang of blank slate, we become so focused and intense that we almost feel we are stepping out of our bodies, going to a corner of a room and watching ourselves negotiate with the adversary. If there is one classic maneuver played by large multinationals and shrewd dealers in all fields to take advantage of anxious adversaries, this is the one. Build positive expectations with pie-in-the-sky numbers, then start in with the ifs, ands, and buts. Positive attitude sounds great, but to me it's just another more seductive way of saying positive expectations. For the negotiator, even a positive attitude is dangerous. Yes, it's true. It can devolve quickly into neediness, into positive expectations. When I teach blank slate, I mean blank slate. And it's hard. Neither positive nor negative expectations have a place in my system. You blank slate and you negotiate it, that's all. When you have a mission and purpose in place, when you have behavioral goals in place, when you've established your plan to solve the real problem, when you have laser-like focus, when you have all this going for you, why would you want to climb on any kind of emotional roller coaster of expectations? When things seem to be going your way in a negotiation, it's easy to get excited and tempting to let your emotions take over. When you feel this happening, call a timeout, take a bathroom break, or suggest a break for coffee or for lunch, or step back in some other way. How many times have you looked at the way someone was dressed and made an assumption, good or bad, that you later discovered was completely wrong? When was the last time you made an assumption based on the car someone was driving? Actually, assumptions are perhaps even more dangerous than expectations because they're so subtle and insidious. We can also plant assumptions, and if the opposing parties let you, why not? Say you're asked how much your widget costs. It's expensive. You say, well, this word means very different things to a millionaire and to a man making $30,000. And here's the important kicker. Each immediately assumes that you mean what he means, and you may well find him preparing to pay a price much higher than yours. In fact, people, negotiators, make offers higher than you ever dreamt they would because of such false assumptions on their part. Our assumptions always work against us. Their assumptions can work for us. Research can rid us of many assumptions and help us blank slate, but we don't have the habit of doing research. Instead, we allow ourselves to be led by assumptions. The lack of information makes it easy to assume and almost impossible to blank slate. Note-taking reinforces listening skills. As we take our notes, our concentration is automatically focused on what is being said. In seminars, meetings, and negotiations, I can quickly tell which ones are the most successful people around the table. If we take notes, we have to be listening. We all think we're good listeners, but when was the last time you focused on your listening skills just for practice? You must listen to every word just as closely as a trial lawyer listens to every word of testimony without letting the mind wander off, without thinking about what you want to say next, without interrupting, without answering your own questions. I'm not much of a Freudian, but Freud did preach to his pupils that they must adopt the same approach with their patients. First, just listen with the most open possible mind. Don't judge. That comes later. If we take notes, we are listening, which is good, and we're not talking, which is equally good. No talking. This is one of my cardinal rules, and an exaggeration, as I admitted earlier. I don't mean that you can't utter a word, but I do mean that in a negotiation most of us should talk a lot less than we do, in the interest of controlling neediness, in the interest of blank slating. When we are spare with our words, we are able to ask much more focused questions, which keeps us on track and gives us clearer pictures. If you can't keep from talking, you won't be able to blank slate. As a negotiator, if you can't control the motor mouth, you're eventually going to say something you'll regret for the duration of that negotiation. That's the phrase I use for the mistaken revelation of information, spilling the beans. When it happens the next time, just make sure it's from the other side, not from you. If you conduct many negotiations, you will be the happy recipient of spilled beans. That's because many people knowingly spill beans as they fight for the feeling of self-importance. It's tough to let go of expectations, not to assume, to listen instead of talking, to take copious notes all the time, to be certain not to spill beans. But with training and practice, blank slate can become a behavioral goal and discipline for anyone. If you feel you cannot blank slate for any reason, you have only one option: cancel the negotiating session. This is how important the blank slate is. The greater the ability to envision, the greater the potential for success. If you can't see it, you'll never be able to do it. Find a quiet place and relax. Close your eyes and run a movie in your mind of some pleasant time in your life, a sporting event, a date, a fun time in school or at work. Before a negotiation, see that negotiation unfolding in your mind. Picture yourself asking the questions, taking the notes, and negotiating with perfect behavior. See yourself relaxed, with no expectations, no need, and no fear. A perfectly blank slate. It works even for a hard-nosed corporate negotiator. Know their pain. Paint their pain. Work with your adversary's real problem. But what exactly do we need a vision of? Pain. This is what brings every adversary in every negotiation to the table. Pain is whatever the negotiator sees as the current or future problem. People make decisions in order to alleviate and take away this current or future problem, this pain. Put in these terms, what else would any negotiation concern? Adhering to your mission and purpose will keep you from going seriously astray in a negative direction. Now you have a tool for keeping you oriented in a positive direction, your vision of your adversary's pain. With both mission and purpose and pain, you're in great shape, but without both, you're wandering in the desert. In the political and moral realm, you could almost define leadership as the effective painting of the pain shared by leader and people. In a really efficient negotiation, both parties will work to clarify the vision of the pain of the adversary. In any event, you must never enter a negotiation in which you haven't seen your adversary's pain. Never. In fact, if your mission and purpose is set in the world of the adversary, and it is, of course, then the features and benefits of what you offer in this negotiation will necessarily be addressed to the pain in the adversary's world. That said, you must never forget to blank slate and to make certain that there's no hidden pain that you haven't discovered and that is subverting the entire deal. People, negotiators, have to feel safe in order to reveal their pain and perhaps even to see it clearly themselves. They definitely will not expose their pain if they think the adversary will try to take advantage of them. When you begin any new negotiation or find yourself losing control of an ongoing negotiation, you return to what? your mission and purpose. And where is your mission and purpose set? In your adversary's world. And what is embedded deep within your adversary's world? Their pain. When in doubt, return to the pain. And always nurture, because without it, the pain may simply be too much. The clearer your adversary's vision of his pain, the easier the decision-making process. Forget any idea you may have about creating pain for your adversary. That's amateur hour. What you help to create is their vision of their very real pain. As a negotiator, you want the adversary to see and understand his pain calmly and rationally, just as you have long ago seen and understood your own pain calmly and rationally. Rather than set out on the sometimes long, hard road of painting vision and pain, many negotiators make the fatal mistake of thinking they can convince someone to make the rational decision to do something, to buy something, to see something the same way they see it. They offer up reasons, facts, figures, and charm that they are sure would make any rational person see things the way they see them. You cannot tell anyone anything. Think about this and be sure you agree with me. You can only help people see for themselves. In trying to convince someone to buy this product or service or to sign this deal, in trying to reason with someone, we are setting ourselves up to fail. Instead, we have to use our fuels of the system, asking questions, nurturing, connecting, reversing, and more, in order to paint the picture of their pain. The rule is, the greater the pain, the higher the price the adversary will pay to have it made better or taken away. Your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. I quote these words from Emerson for the second time because truer words were never written. For a negotiator, they're pure gold. The naturally glib negotiator talks too much. The brilliant negotiator tries to overpower his adversary with intelligence. The friendly, compassionate negotiator tries to save his adversary. The aggressive negotiator tries to browbeat his adversary. You want to avoid the too positive and the too negative. The vision has to be clear, but so does the solution you offer. The real budget and how to build it. The importance of time, energy, money, and emotion. As with pain, budget in my system is almost a technical term. It is much more than your normal budget, much more than an itemization of projected costs, because the real price to be paid in the negotiation goes way beyond dollars and cents. Budget in the CAM system breaks down into 3 budgets that help us account for and control this real price in time and energy, money and emotional investment. My rough and ready formula for calculating the overall budget for a negotiation gives time a value of X, energy 2X, money 3X, and emotion 4X. What happens if your emotions enter the negotiation and the equation in a powerful way? Multiply that 6 by 4 by. You're up to 24 times, a large relative number that serves mainly to demonstrate how important the budget for emotion is, how dangerous emotional investment is. In any negotiation, the calculation of time must enter our minds because the time at our disposal and at our adversary's disposal is so fleeting and so finite. We must understand that time can be used against us in many ways, especially as a way to increase the real price of a negotiation and eventually bring about a possible compromise. All of a sudden, we're saying to ourselves, I've got too much time in this, I can't turn away now. Just a little more time and they'll buy. Nothing could be further from the truth. Never chase time. No matter how good an appointment or meeting looks or sounds at first blush, it must meet the criteria of validity. If it doesn't offer the prospective producing results you can measure, it has to go. Let me just repeat what I said earlier. The great negotiator in any field must not lift a finger without a clear picture of the negotiation coming up, a clear picture of the adversary's pain, and a firm knowledge that the adversary has the budgets in time and energy, money and emotion to pay, negotiate, to have this pain taken away. Being stood up is annoying, but it happens, and it's not the end of the world. It becomes a problem only if you crash emotionally and thereby concede leverage in the negotiation to your adversary. Patience, my friend, always patience. That's the watchword. When someone tries to drive up time on you, regardless of how, patience will be your sword. Budgeting time is a matter of disciplining ourselves, of maintaining patience, of following our mission and purpose with dedication and skill. Time intensifies pain. As the investment of time mounts higher and higher, so does the psychological pressure. Many negotiators allow themselves to get the sense that they are under a deadline, beyond which they have wasted their time. My clients love to hear from the other side, "Okay, let's cut to the chase," because this may mean that the time and energy budget for the adversary is reaching its allotted total, and that they are seeing the pain very, very clearly, and they're finally just about willing and able to make an effective decision. For your own part, make certain that you do have all the time in the world, and if you don't, be ready to walk away. Remember, you only want this deal. You do not need this deal. We do want to spend energy in preparation and research, but the shocking reality is that many people won't or don't prepare for negotiations. They won't spend the time or energy required. This isn't conserving energy, this is laziness, which inevitably wastes energy at a later stage of the negotiation. Once you and your adversary start spending real money during the negotiation and get serious about exchanging much more when the deal is signed, the value of any negotiation goes up dramatically. Remember, time is 1x, energy 2x, and money 3x, roughly and relatively speaking. Just as with time and energy, you want money to work for you and against your adversary. You will try to drive up your adversary's budget by making the negotiation literally expensive, and your adversary will try to do the same, because everyone knows that a money squeeze is often followed by compromise if the untrained negotiator loses sight of his mission and purpose. He'd invested so much in this negotiation, he just wasn't going to lose this deal. I was shocked. It hit me like a ton of bricks. The money he had already spent made the negotiation so valuable he couldn't let it go away. You must know your own budget for money, and, as Craig learned, you must know your adversary's budget as well. Emotions have an extremely high value in any negotiation. The value of the negotiation increases by many multiples when emotional pain or excitement is invested. The reason money is the toughest business decision is that money issues are also emotional issues for most of us. You must control your needs, your positive and negative expectations, your fears, your ego, your responses, and your decisions. You must not expect to manage the actual wins or losses, because you can't do this. You can only manage the means to the end. Stay within your system, manage your activity, manage your behavior. This is all the armor you need. At the same time, you build needs, expectations, fears, and egos in the adversary in order to increase the value of the negotiation for him. Know your budget. Control your budget. Know their budget. Build their budget. These rules apply for time and energy, for money, for emotions. When you master them, you really can't fail. Have an agenda and work it. Ride the chaos inherent in negotiation. Your ability to identify the greatest problems and then to bring them into the negotiation head-on by way of an agenda will exponentially improve your record. Agendas also help us to maintain emotional control. If your team is having trouble crafting explicit agendas, you're also having trouble with mission and purpose, or with goals, or with blank slating, or with painting the pain, or with budgets, or with all of these. Every negotiating session, even a telephone call or an email, no matter how short, even 1 minute or 1 paragraph, requires an agenda. Maybe this sounds radical at first, but it's really not. Every call and email has some kind of purpose, doesn't it? I hope so. So what's the purpose? The agenda makes it clear. The only agenda that is valid for purposes of negotiation is the one that has been negotiated with the adversary. May I ask you a difficult question without you getting mad at me? You sure I can ask you a tough question? You won't get mad? That's another mini agenda and another 3+. With that mini agenda in place, you can ask the question without fear. But asking that question out of the blue might have been enough to send your adversary packing. Agendas and mini-agendas not only make you comfortable, they make your adversary comfortable. By keeping your adversary comfortable, you maintain control and leverage. A valid agenda or a mini-agenda has 5 basic categories. 1. Problems. 2. Our baggage. 3. Their baggage. 4. What we want. 5. What happens next. All too often, we negotiators try not to recognize our problems, or if we do recognize them, we are then tempted to sweep them under the carpet and hope they go away. If the problems seem insurmountable, we give up. In short, we are often the real problem underlying all of our problems, because we do not deal with them head on. But if we do deal with our problems head on, we appear as effective people to the adversary. This is comforting for the adversary and for us. Burdened by baggage related to gender, age, religion, education, appearance, attitudes, financial status, experience, or seniority, whatever baggage you think will be a problem in the negotiation needs to be dealt with up front. Agendas and mini-agendas lay out everything that will significantly affect reaching that deal. Baggage is certainly in that category. Your adversary will not resent your question about baggage. He wasn't born yesterday. He'll know where you're coming from. He'll respect you for asking. Or maybe the baggage you lay on the table does kill the deal then and there. So what's the loss if you lay your inexperience on the table and the adversary walks away? You weren't going to get anywhere anyway. You've kept your time and energy budget extremely low. But if your adversary does not walk off, you have gained some respect for your forthrightness and competence, and you have negotiated a track on which to run without being blindsided. Baggage discarded by all concerned is not a problem. Baggage that isn't discarded remains a problem. Just be sure that every problem and every piece of baggage is placed on an agenda. Use your imagination, use your experience, use your common sense. When in doubt, err on the side of including a candidate problem or baggage on the agenda. Often, negotiators don't know what they want, not really, not step by step down the long and winding road. They just want a signed deal, that's all. They don't have a clue about what they want at every step of the decision-making process along the way. They're thinking about ends, which are out of their control, not about means, which we control with agendas. If you can't figure out what you want at a given point in the negotiation, figure out what else is missing. Is your mission and purpose in place? If you haven't prepared for the negotiation session, how aware can you be of what you want from that session? Not very. But if you know exactly what you want, how are you perceived by the adversary? Effective. If you know exactly what you want and it's valid, how early do you compromise? You don't compromise early. In most negotiations, at some point, one of your wants will be some numbers, prices, quantities, but always remember that numbers are limitations. Avoid them until the time is right. As the buyer, you do not want to know the seller's prices in the first meeting, unless this is an extremely simple negotiation. As the seller, you do not want to know how much the customer says he wants to pay in the first meeting. Wants proceed in lockstep with the other principles of my system. Your first wants will concern the big picture, your adversary's baggage, perhaps, and certainly his vision and pain and needs and budgets. Present your case, if you insist. Beware the seductions of PowerPoint. To the chagrin of some of my own clients, frankly, I say that the presentation is that part of basic negotiating theory, win-win and otherwise, that the old school may feel has tremendous value, but in fact has very little, if any. I've seen many more times when the presentation was positively harmful to the presenter's standing in the negotiation, or even fatal. When was the last time you hoped that the salesperson, agent, whoever, would just be quiet for 5 minutes and let you discover the offer for yourself? If you've worked through your system and implanted vision and painted your adversary's pain effectively, you have made a winning presentation. You don't tell anyone anything, remember. They have to see it for themselves. But how do most presentations work? They try to tell the adversary not just anything, but everything, and then hope against hope that the adversary goes along with what's been said. If you have worked effectively to paint the pain, a presentation is simply a waste of time and energy. If you have not painted the pain, the presentation is no substitute for your failure to do so, and it won't do you any good now. Think honestly about your own experience, and I'll bet you agree that otherwise effective negotiations have survived formal presentations, but they have never needed them. Present only the information that addresses your adversary's concern, the information that addresses the adversary's pain, or what you know about it, which is probably not much, or you wouldn't be presenting in the first place. Addition by subtraction. This old sports adage about making your team better by getting rid of a certain player is also true for presentations. Present in the order of importance. What is prep and step? It's the reminder that your work in this negotiating session isn't over until you've either prepared the bridge to the next one by means of what happens next on the agenda, or until you have prepared a means of exiting the negotiation for good, ending it by fading away into the night. Plotted on paper, all the negotiations within the negotiation would look like a tangled spider's web. In fact, however, all these bits and pieces of the negotiation fit together logically, thanks to agendas and diligent prep and stepping every step of the way. Not a single email or phone call was concluded without setting the stage for the next email or phone call. Life's greatest lesson, the only assurance of long-term success. We consistently perform to the level of our self-image. Our world was built by men and women of high self-esteem. In negotiation, it is absolutely required if you are to succeed. It is self-esteem that gives you the confidence to face down debilitating neediness, to swallow false pride, to make tough decisions, to act in the many challenging ways I've discussed throughout these pages. Self-esteem is your internal appraisal of yourself as an individual, and nothing can affect it. Okayness is your public presentation of yourself. The difference is huge, obviously. Your own high self-esteem is exactly what allows you to allow your adversary to have all the okayness in the negotiation. Self-esteem keeps you in the fight when you face overwhelming odds. With it, no situation can keep you from seeing yourself as a strong person, a capable person, a deserving person, a successful person. High self-image gives us the strength to endure high levels of success. It confirms your desire to fulfill your capabilities. It demands that you be paid full measure for work rendered. It is your high self-image that won't allow you to sleep if you don't do the right thing. Achievement requires self-esteem, and to build self-esteem, you only need to start paying forward. To pay forward more effectively at every opportunity, with your family and friends, in the workplace, in your community, in your house of worship, everywhere. And then you should pay forward some more. You will reap the benefit in every aspect of your life, including, most definitely, the negotiating table. Paying full price when justified empowers me to ask full price when justified. In this world, we do usually get what we pay for, remember. We also perform to the level of our self-image. Dance with a tiger. 33 rules to remember. You think about how things went, then you pick another negotiation to do camp style, and you start again. First you crawl, then you walk, and then you dance. This is when it gets really fun. Full and complete implementation of the system in this book requires a great deal of discipline, as I've stated time and again, and it's difficult to maintain such discipline in any endeavor when working alone. This is one reason why almost no top athletes train alone. Every day, you'll be a better negotiator than you were yesterday, and one day, for the first time in your business life, you'll start to achieve at a level approaching your potential. I guarantee it. So, thank you very much for listening or watching. If you've made it all the way to the end, huge kudos to you, and leave a comment. I'll send you a cookie. So thanks again. Check out the book. I'm sure you will find it if you're interested. I highly recommend it. I mean, who can't benefit from better negotiating skills, right? Everybody. So I highly recommend it, and thanks again for watching. Bye.